Hello there. This is my third series at Drive-By Evangelism, a third video under my Teddy O brand. And I want to switch gears a little bit for someone who may stumble across this video and decide they want to watch it for a little bit, see if there's anything here that interests them. First of all, I want to make mention of the fact that the idea came into my thinking here in the last day or two, and I realized that uh, the if you look at the first two videos that I did on this project, you saw that the door into the hallway right over there, where you see the flag now, the USA Old Glory. Um, when there was showed the door there, and I got to thinking, that's about the size of the flag, and I decided to get my flag out that I usually hang up in the front door and the screen door over there when the weather's nice and I can open the door, and so I took that as a flag, and it just happens to fit almost the same size as. So it's a nice little side drop there on the right hand of my ideas. Get that on the right hand of my ideas. The right hand. I don't know if anybody really realizes, but things can only be done in the right way. Did you ever think about that? Oh, maybe not. Probably not. But now things can be done right. Right things can be done, but they're done in a wrong way. And so when you do a right thing in a wrong way, you get the wrong result. And there, I can give you a lot of examples of that. And one of them, that's what this video is about. But but then, of course, you've also got a situation where you can do a wrong thing and you can do it in a right way, and you still get a wrong result. That's just the way that it works. And then there's, of course, you can do a wrong thing in a wrong way, and obviously you're going to get a wrong result. So a little bit of what do you call it? Philosophical speculation there, except for the first one. A right thing has to be done in a right way to be right. And that's an absolute, by the way. Absolute, by the way. So um, if you do a right thing in a wrong way, you get a wrong result. Now, how does that apply to Capitalism Corrupted? That's what this video is about. And I'm going to put a post with the graphic above this video on my Facebook page, and I'm going to put a post with a graphic below this video on my face, because I haven't figured out how to do. I know there's a way to do it. Introduce the video with the graphic of the subject of the video, because I've done it, but it's a drawn out process, and I'm not really technically oriented. I've learned a lot of things over the last few years working on the internet since I retired on my road selling, but it's that process of making a video that way is just to make the video introduction have that graphic on it. And if I put it below and if I post it above and post it below my Facebook page, then it's there anyway, and the video content squished in the middle, and that gets the same result, or the same object, the same outcome. So it's a lot easier to do it that way than it is to go through all the hoops I got to go through to make the video, and then use the graphic, and then put the two together, and then so on and so forth. So anyway, enough of that. Now, what is Capitalism Corrupted? Okay, well, it boils down to the fact, and what does that all have to do with drive-by evangelism? Well, it boils down to the fact that if you look at the graphic and the content of the graphic, it simply says there that all people use their freedom to think in ways that are detrimental to other people, to other whoever they come in contact with. All people use their freedom that they're given to think in ways that are detrimental to other people. And frankly, you can question that if you want to. That's up to you. Far be it from me to try to tell you how to think. But all you got to do is look at the facts, look at the reality around you. Stop living in a land of unrealistic expectations, or in a land of denial, in a land that is self-justified, in a total arrogance of self-absorbed thinking of your own, and not accepting anything anybody else says unless you put your stamp of approval on it. Blah blah blah, which is the way people are, including myself. So I don't escape this. I just know what the facts are. Now, of course, if all people are, you see, people think that they think they were born with freedom to think because they're great human beings, and human beings are so great, and human beings can think. And a lot of people today, scientific technological people, don't think humans think very well, and they think artificial intelligence is better than human thinking, which of course is a flat out lie. It's a flat out deception of truth. It's a deception of the corruption of truth. It's a way to sell machines that they want to build. That's all it is. You find me a machine that can think, and they put up the headline. Well, they beat them in chess, and they're better at predicting this, and they're better at predicting that. And this is all a bunch of crap. This is all a bunch of hooey. This is a way for these technical people and companies that build these machines to sell them. That's what they're after, and they want you to believe that it's better to use these machines than it is to have humans trained and educated and build up their experience in order to think in ways that are beneficial, and so forth and so on. Now, is a machine that's a computer faster in thinking? No, that's not true either. That's a lie, just an absolute adulteration of reality. People think at the speed of light. Now, I don't know if you know what the speed of light is. I'm not even going to go into it because you wouldn't understand it if I did. But people think at the speed, that's the way we're designed, in case you didn't know it. We're designed to think at the speed of light. That's what gets us in all the trouble we get in, because we think things before we even realize that we're going to think what we're going to think. And by the time we never realize what we're going to think, because our thinking is corrupted. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, okay. Well, let me explain something to you. Have you ever met anybody that's never that lives in a biological human body, either female or male? Either have you ever met one, or have you ever heard of one that never expired? A little silence there. Get your rust in your cogs and your thinking moving there. Have you ever met anybody that's never expired? You see, people don't expire. Biological bodies expire. Oh, absolutely. You're aware of that for sure, aren't you? As you live under that fear every hour, every day of every day you get older, you live under that fear, whether you're aware of it or not. Like I said, I don't care whether you believe me or not. I know that's a fact. Unless your thinking has rehabilitated, intervened, The whole thing, the whole plan here for you is the reason you have freedom to think as a human being, and the reason you have been given human life, reason you are a person, is so that you can be rehabilitated, so that you can be intervened, so that you can be made to think correctly. See? Because unless you are intervened, you are going to think in a corrupt, destroying manner. Now, you think you're a really good person, and you prove it by the fact that you point to this wonderful family that you have. Unless you're one of the 70 or 80% of the people that have been divorced and their family strung all over them and totally dysfunctional. But see, if you're in that little bit of a class over here you're younger and you happen to escape because you're really a moral person, and you've got a wonderful family and wonderful children, and you think you're better than everybody else because all you do is look at your family, and nobody's got a family like you do. Nobody's got a beautiful home like you do, or very few people do. Nobody's got a wonderful job like you do, and nobody's such a fantastic moral person like you are. And you're so fantastic, you can't even believe it yourself how fantastic you are. And then of course there's all those on the other side. Most people are not anywhere near that self-absorbed and arrogant. Most people realize that they're not quite anywhere near the way you think you are. And I'm speaking to that end of the spectrum of people because I've got a point I'm going to make here. um, all across the spectrum of people, it doesn't matter whether you are so self absorbed that you think there's nobody like you and your family, or very few, because of your great existence, or because you live such a the way you want to live. And boy, look at me, I've pulled myself together and I'm great. And all the way from the clear over here where you're so fantastic to those that are kind of, well, I know I've got a lot of faults, but I'm pretty darn good, all the way through to the ones that don't even realize how bad they are. See, in other words, all people, including me. Okay. See, and see, if that's the case, and it is, and like I said, I don't care whether you agree with me or not. I could care less, and it doesn't make a nickel's worth of difference if you do or if you don't, because it's not going to change the truth. You see, the truth is immutable. You know what that word means? Probably not. It means changeless. Do you know what that means? That means nothing. Uh, the truth doesn't change. It's always been the truth. It always will be the truth, and the truth exists. And you can't adulterate the truth just because you think your thinking is better than the truth. See, you can't. That's something. But see, people are so arrogant, and I'm talking about all people, including me. Okay, we're so arrogant that we think we can change the truth. We can do something to make the truth better. See, that's people for you. And I'm talking about all people. Now, there is a solution to that, and it's an intervention. And it's something I don't want to necessarily go into in this video because there's no way to tell it in a short video. But the point I want to get across in this video is, since all and like I said, whether you believe this or not is really immaterial. And go on, don't even watch this. Go on, get out. Because all you're going to do is reject it anyway. I'm looking for that few, and there are some that will say, wait a minute, this makes some sense. And they're the ones that are going to get some good out of this. See, now, how do I know this? Well, because I'm 70, almost 80 years old, 79. I've dealt with people all my life. I've had some ups and some downs, and thank God the last 40 years have 50 years, 40 years, 40 some years have been more on the uptrend than the first 40 were. See, so what do you call that? Well, you call that progress, see. Now here comes the FedEx man. You'll excuse me because I want to get my package. I got some stuff coming for my little dog, Scruffy. So excuse me a minute while I pick this package up. Hey! Hi, how you doing? Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Get back, Scruffy. Okay, I got that. I had to get that UPS man taken care of and get my stuff that I ordered in the house. So, okay, so back to all people are corrupt and their thinking is corrupt. And it's been that way since birth, and almost everybody, 100% of the people are that way, corrupt thinkers. Okay, they can't do anything. See, because what happens is their parents were that way when they were born, and their parents before them were that way when they were born, and their parents were that way, and you go all the way back to the first two people, and they thought the way they were supposed to think because they were obedient until the lady of the marriage, and they were married, by the way, after she was created, the creator of the man, and then the creator of the woman for the man married him. That's the institution of marriage. In case you didn't know where that came from, and she was the one that they obeyed they on a day. It says they obeyed on a daily basis, and we know that because of what's revealed. And that's for another topic, another subject, another day. But the point I'm getting at is she disobeyed, and the minute she disobeyed, her whole ability to think correctly changed over to her leader at that point, which is the one that corrupted her and conned her into disobedience. And he's never thought straight since the day he disobeyed, and or the time he disobeyed. So back to the lady now. So then the lady went over to Adam, the first man, and said, "Hey, look at me! Isn't that great?" And he said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, follow me." And he said, "Okay." And so he disobeyed. You see, so there you go. Now then, for the first time, they were going to have offspring. See, up to that point, they weren't. Their whole program was not for any procreation. Up to that point, you probably aren't aware of that, but there wasn't. There was no design. There wasn't any need for it. They were in perfect thought processing and perfect environment. Everything was perfect. Everything was provided as long as they obeyed. And basically, it's the same way that today, but for a different process, a different method, different plan. Okay. But the plan at that time was, as long as they obeyed, they didn't have a sweat, not one worry, not one concern. But there was no children, and that's probably why there wasn't any, or a big part of why. But see, after they disobeyed, then there was children. Okay, but the children now, see, the minute the lady disobeyed, her genetic structure of her perfect body corrupted, was set off on a uh, pathway that immediately it started to terminate. Click, 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 tick tock, tick tock. That biological body, that human body, changed over to a biological body disconnected from the human life thinking person, and the and the and the and the biological body, tick tock, started to terminate. And that same thing is true today. When you're born, when you're given human life, as after you're born, you're born and given human life, and your human life is your ability to think. That's who you are, not that biological fetus that pops out of the womb. That's not you. That's just a representation of your historical genetic pool. I see you probably didn't know that, and you probably don't agree with it, or many won't. And frankly, I'm not surprised because, like I say, I've been dealing with people for uh, really closely for 40 years, and I know how they react to things that are true. They people don't like the truth. They don't like the truth. They reject the truth. They ignore the truth. They refuse the truth. They're just absolutely opposed to the truth. They don't. People don't want anything to do with the truth, and so that's why there's so many problems. See, there's no everybody was thinking correctly, there wouldn't be any problems. But the reason why there's many problems is because everybody's refuses to think the truth. And before that, before they center up on that problem, they refuse to be intervened. Their thinking processes are, they're so proud of the way they think that they refuse to have the intervention that straightens their thinking out, see, on a daily basis. Because you probably never noticed it, but you only get to live one day at a time. A lot of people are trying to live in the past, and that you can't do that. And people are constantly thinking about the future and trying to live in the future. They're planning this, they're planning that, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and they got this whole idea about the future that isn't even there. There's no, it's there, but you can't live that future until it gets to the next day. See, that's the reason the sun goes up and the sun goes down every day. And the reason for that is because, and that's the only day you've got. You don't have any of those days you're thinking about out here in the future. You don't have any of them days that are in the past. That's over and done with, and that's coming hasn't even, you haven't lived that yet. So that it's not there. It's there because it was put in place. And that's another subject, and I'm not going to get into that right now because that's a long subject again. And this video is not designed for that. This video is designed to draw attention to the fact that because people think incorrectly, and everybody does, and most 99, probably 99% of them refuse intervention. Now, maybe that's a little strong. Maybe 80%, maybe 70, maybe 50% allow interject. They allow a intervention which straightens out their ability to think correctly, but then they never take the opportunity and learn how to think correctly. They refuse it, ignore it, reject it. Even though, see, I called before in the first video, I called it spiritual IQ. You get a spiritual IQ when you accept intervention, connection. But if you don't, then you never can think. And most of the people but so very few do. And the reason why is there's so much false information floating around that people would rather believe than the truth. And so what you have then is a situation where you've got a bunch of stumble bums running around here, everybody thinking inaccurately in detrimental ways, and therefore everybody that they come in contact with is affected by all that negative, detrimental thinking that's being shoved out there into the options in the thinking world in what I call the varying and changing circumstances of life. And it's on a 24-hour basis. It's the input, the overload of false, negative, detrimental information that's coming into everybody is the reason why people are so fouled up today. It's the reason why we've got the divorce rate. It's the reason why families have busted up in the last 40, 50 years. People can't even hardly remember when they were married the first time because they're divorced one or two or three times. Now, people who know me are going to say, well, you were married three times. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was looking. I just refused to accept the fact that I couldn't see when you are on the pathway to allowing your freedom to be used in a way that it lets you escape from slavery of thinking the wrong way, and when then you're on the pathway, and I was on the pathway and it caused all kind of problems but being what the kind of a person I am, I never once thought about the concept of divorce. I mean, to me, well, it just never entered my mind. But once I was impacted by somebody else applying that to me, to my life. And since I was so young at the time, I thought, well, there's nothing wrong with. I'm no longer under the uh, situation that I was in previously, and therefore I wanted to have some. I kept looking for somebody that would be search after the truth the way that I had been doing for uh, at least 15 years, and that's really what drove the process of having the divorce forced upon me and my ripping up the roots of my family, ripping them up out of the ground. Okay, by someone who refused the truth and wanted to and never justified herself in terms of truth, but only in terms of the way she wanted to justify her actions and put all the blame on me. Uh, why else would you get rid of a husband? Because the husband was all wrong when you were so great that that's why you're going to get rid of the husband, because the husband doesn't measure up to your standards, and besides that, he's culpable. And you see, culpability is one thing, but the command that culpability allows for divorce in the connected way of thinking, in the truth way of thinking. Yeah, it does, and there's a reason for it, because there's physical abuse and there's mental abuse, and there are vows of adultery and fornication that are abused during marriage, and if those are the cases, the fact of the truth, then divorce is allowed. Because a woman should not have to live, or a man should not have to live under those kind of conditions. And so it's allowed, but it is never commanded. We'll let that sink in a little bit. Divorce is never commanded. As a matter of fact, what is commanded is to rise above the difficulties of your life with the power of your connection. That's what's commanded. And that's what she never would, that's what she refused to do. That's why she justified getting rid of me. See, and a lot of men justify getting rid of their wife because their wife isn't good enough for them, and they've got evidence that they under, even if they're connected, then they want to follow these moralistic rules that allow them to, religious moralistic Christian rules that allow them to get rid of their wife or their husband. See, and they're never held accountable for that. Uh, just like no Christian is ever held accountable for any mistake he ever made. That's what Christ on the cross is all about. You see. Uh, but people don't want to believe that either. The Christian religion that they might be connected with, they want to keep on punishing you for your mistakes. See, and you have to live under that tyranny if you expect to be a good Christian. See, and you have to renounce all that and blah blah blah, which you can't do because you still got those genetic flaws in your biological body, and that all works together to, as I say, that all that genetic flawed tick tock genetic body that is terminating and will terminate at some point, day by day by day. It wears down, wears down, wears down, and they call it natural causes. But really, what it is you get so many days when you come out of the womb, and God gives you human life. You get so many days, and that's it. When that time comes, well, your human thinking life and your eternal life that is allowed to bring divine thinking down into your human thinking goes one of two places to live for the rest of eternity. But you don't get to go to the good place until went through the Bema. And the Bema is where you go after you terminate. If you go there before the exonastasis, and the exonastasis is where everybody goes off the earth before the last 1,000 years start, when Jesus Christ, the man, returns to earth, and the God man returns to earth and is the king and rules the earth for 1,000 years. See, before that happens, you have to appear before him at the Bema. And the reason is, according to the revelation of perfect truth that has been revealed and written by God and recorded by God and distributed by God, don't believe that religious crap that they tell you. The Christian denominations tell you that men wrote the Bible under what they call inspiration from God. Well, that's a bunch of baloney. That's a bunch of crap. God wrote it. He just used them. He just used the writers, and that's why he had used different writers, because different writers had different things he wanted to use, and he knew what they were. So he used different writers at different times, all the way over a span of 60 years, all the way out to 96 AD, starting in about 35, 36, 37 AD. So you see, it's all about truth. And when God writes something and records it and distributes it, you better believe it's the truth, unadulterated, absolutely. And that's what I refer to when I talk about intervention. You're given the ability as a thinking human being by God to be free to choose to think that truth. Or you can take the option, because you see, God is a gentleman. He doesn't force anything on anybody except his will is going to be done the way it's going to be done, in spite of what you think you're going to accomplish or choose to do, because of the way you think things are going to turn out. So, in other words, God's in charge. It's all about obedience. Authority, 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 authority. And that's another reason why there's so much problem in the world, because I've never really met anybody that accepts authority. In one way or another, they always seem to slip around it or try to get under it, or over it, through it, or whatever. Okay. As a sales manager for many years, I observed this among people, and you had to figure out a way to deal with that. That's why they called you a manager. a manager of sales. You were a manager of people that were entrusted with a job to get sales, and you had to figure out a way to get around the fact that none of them were willing to be honest with you about what they were doing in order to use the training that you gave them. Okay, so but see, so here's the thing: if people are 100% of them are thinking, using choosing the option to think in opposition to truth, if that's the case, and it is, then by extension, you'd have to say that people in business think that way. So that's why this video is called Capitalism Corrupted. You get that? In other words, here's the thing: capitalism was created to help every person on earth get the things they need in order to sustain themselves and their families. So that, why? So they could decide to learn to be taught how to think correctly. That's the only reason for capitalism. It's not what men have corrupted it and women have corrupted it into. And a simple way for you to understand capitalism, because it was invented by Jesus Christ. He said it's very simple. See, the things that you're supposed to believe, as far as the truth, absolute, uncorrupted, unadulterated truth is concerned, was invented and is the thought process of divine, sovereign, eternal God. That's truth. That's love. See, people say, well, love, they think this is love. I'll tell you what love is. Love is divine, perfect, eternal, sovereign thinking of truth. One way to think, one way to apply thought, and that's it. There isn't any other way, except that you're given the freedom to think any way you choose, you see. And you say, well, that's not even fair because there's so many people that aren't accepting the authority. Oh yeah, but you see, that's assuming that they didn't have the truth and the opportunity presented to them, and that's like saying God is unfair. And of course, that's a joke. See, everybody gets the chance to think correctly. And that's a video. That's several videos. That's a 3 4 year study. You see, this is just to try to get you to think different, start to think different, and then get on the pathway to stop thinking. So you think you are doing everything right, and there's no way that you can be made better, and so you're not going to listen to anybody else or anything else, especially if you're older and been around a long time. Then you're really solid. You're really fouled up because that's the way you've been all your life. And So, all right. So here's the thing: capitalism is a real simple concept. Plant a seed, harvest 10. See, you get that? You just plant one, but you harvest 10. So business people plant a seed, harvest 10. Now it's capitalism is not harvest a seed, that is plant a seed and harvest 10, and then take that 10 and plant those and get 1,000, and then plant the 1,000 and get 10,000, and then plant the 10,000 and get 100,000, and then plant the 100,000 and get 1,000,000. That's not capitalism. That's arrogance. That's the misuse of capitalism. See, now where is that 10 seeds supposed to be? The 10 seeds are analogous to businessmen planting a seed, harvesting 10, producing services, goods, and products for the people to be able to purchase on the monetary values that are established in the nation. Where? Where they live. Where else? I mean, where are people? People are where they live, aren't they? So the 10 seeds are the reason for the 10 seeds to provide what people need for their sustenance and so forth, or the ability to purchase monetary goods if the seeds are considered to be the fruits of your labor, your from the work from your job. See, that's capitalism too, by the way. You're working for a company, you're working for a business, you get paid a salary, you get paid an income, and you use that income to buy seeds. And but the whole thing is designed to be work at where you live. Okay, but you see, throughout history, since all people think corruptly, then what they've done is they've taken that concept and they've corrupted it, and they've used it to their own ends instead of for the people that they're supposed to be using it for, to provide them what they need so they can daily choose to learn truth and live a happy life where they live, locally. locally Not all over the country, not all over the world. You see, what we've seen, and just boil this down to good old USA there, you see it? Boil it down to just our country. What we've seen is since our uh, escape from tyranny that we were involved in, and our U.S. Constitution, our freedom, supposed under the law, what is then business started up real, expansion was fantastic, because we had people coming here and coming here and coming here like crazy, and businesses were developed and grown and grown and grown, and then people started getting involved in that growth and everything, and they said, wait a minute. Well, we can operate more businesses like this one and serve more people in other localities. See, and so that's called business growth by the false thinkers, business growth. And it's all tied to the love of money, which is expressly denied to us under the regulations of truth. There's nothing wrong with money. Money is wonderful. It's the love of money that is the root of all imperfect thinking. See, it's the love of it. And when people think they're going to take a business that's been, if you're running a business right and you're running it efficiently and you're experienced enough, you can't fail in business because you're buying low and selling at a price that people can afford to pay, and therefore there's a profit built in there. See, it's when you corrupt those principles when things go haywire. And you don't need to look any further than how fast people fail in business. Then look at the statistics on the failures rate of businesses the first 5 years that they start a business. It's super high. And why is that? Because they don't know straight up from straight down about running a business, and so it can't succeed. Now, that's one of the reasons why the franchise model came into existence. And since the franchise model has came into existence, and since this will lead me into the next video about how the businesses, local businesses and franchise businesses, have price gouged the American consumer to the point over the last 100 years or 70 years, thereabouts, to the point where they've driven the half of the population into the zip codes in the United States where it's considered low income and they can't afford to buy from these franchise businesses and these local businesses that are independent in the higher income franchises on a regular basis because of the way in which the franchise business model, and by extension now, the local independent business owners operate, reflecting from the franchise model, thinking that that's the way to run a business, which is totally wrong. It's if you run a franchise business, if you're a franchisee, you're price gouging the public anywhere from 15 to 30% more than necessary. And over time, that has driven the consuming wage earner and so forth into a situation where half of the zip codes in the United States are considered low income, and into a situation where the wife and even some cases the kids have to work along with the husband, and they have to have one or two jobs, a lot of them, just to keep just to be able to have a place to live and to buy food and clothes and have a car to get to work and buy gas and so forth. That's the way it is. And if you don't believe me, drive out into some of the areas where the low income zip codes are. It's all information available on the internet. Drive out into those areas and see how many franchise stores you see. See how many businesses you see. And then drive out into all of the commercial streets in the higher income zip codes in the United States on the commercial streets, and it's just one business right after another, isn't it? You see, that is a reflection. That's what I call overpopulated and underutilized. Now, I'll save that concept. That's see, think of all you can. I don't care what city you go into the higher zip code, just drive down the higher zip code commercial streets, zone commercial streets, and see the businesses lined up one after another, one after another, one after another, one after another for miles, but only in the higher income zip codes. Now drive out into the lower income zip codes and see how sparsely there aren't. First of all, there are very few, if hardly any, except maybe on the fringes of those lower income zip codes. Are there any franchise stores? And the independent business owners are very just sprinkled, spotty throughout those lower. Why? Because those people, their income is such that if the businesses have to operate in the price gouging model, following the franchise model, in order for them to be able to have made the right decision to purchase a franchise in order to have a job. That's all it is. So I'm going to get out now because I'm way over 47 minutes. Wow. And see you on the next video. Capitalism Corrupted.